Hi, and welcome back to my channel. I'm here because it's the middle of the month. I have read 20 books, almost 21. I think I have like 15 or 20% left in the book that I'm reading now. But I thought I would talk to you about the first 20 books that I read in this month of October, so that it is a mid-month October wrap-up or October mid-month wrap-up, one or the other. So I decided to log each book with the author's name, the rating, and one or two sentences that describe the book. And I'm going to see if I can make a concise video. So without any further ado, the first book I read this month was The Killer She Knew by Nichole Severn. Now, this is the third book in the Lee Brody FBI series. And I think maybe 6 or 7 months ago, I did read books 1 and 2. I didn't have this for any kind of tour. I just want to keep up with the series as the series progresses. But in this particular book, Lee has a case that mimics a case that she had 18 years previously. A young woman, I think her name was Alice, or I might be wrong on her name, but a young woman was killed. And as Lee begins her investigation, she realizes that it's almost part and parcel to the one that she had 18 years previously. And that's what pretty much that is. And like I said, I just want to do brief summaries. Then I read the first book in the Dream Harbor series by Laurie Gilmore. Now, this is the first book, like I said, in that series. I'm sorry, I was just making my column larger. And it's called The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. As far as I can remember, there are 6 books right now, and they are all available on Hoopla. So as I thin out my TBR, I will incrementally read those other titles. Then the next book I read was Irish Parade Murder by Leslie Meier. Now, this is the 27th book in her Lucy Stone series. There are 31 books in total, and I already read all the books, except this one. Somehow or another, this book went unread on NetGalley on my TBR, so I stuck it in there because I don't want to miss any books in that series. I just love the Lucy Stone series. It's kind of pretty much considered a cozy mystery because it's a, Murder, She Wrote type vibe where you don't see any crime happening, you don't see any gruesome activities or things, you don't hear bad language, you don't hear any of that. So yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's a cozy mystery series. Now, this book is called, like I said, Irish Parade Murder. And in this particular book, Lucy has a couple of dilemmas, and I'll just be brief. One is at her job at the newspaper where she works, there's a new reporter that's been hired, and she's worried about him displacing her. More importantly, her father-in-law has just died, so she's really concerned with the mental well-being of her mother-in-law. And there's 4 things. Thirdly, there's quite the possibility that an interloper that came into the family right at the time of Lucy's father-in-law's death might have ulterior motives. And last but not least, there's murder, as is in every book in the series, Irish Parade Murder. Now, I think I'll tell you about these books in order, even though I read books in between. And the reason why I read books in between is because I am always working on my TBR. I mean, that's just a given. And because I'm working on my TBR, I don't want to I'm trying to get to the point where each month on NetGalley, I have completed everything in my queue. But because I willingly accepted the book Her Cold Heart as a blog tour this month, I knew that there were previous books in the series. And I do have several series on Bookature. The publisher is Bookature. I have several books that I will be reading in order to stay with the flow of upcoming books and series. That's just a personal goal. So because I wanted to do that, I had to start with her Silent Bones, and that's by Pamela Fagan Hutchins, and it's the first book in the Delaney Pace series. Now, in this first book, Delaney has returned home because she's become guardian to her niece. Her niece's parents were killed, and Delaney, a former cop, has been a long-haul trucker for about 10 years, but she needs to be where she can give her niece a stable home, so she takes a job as deputy investigator. That's how we meet Delaney in this first book. We also meet somebody else, and I'll mention his name, Sheriff Leo Palmer. He's a deputy as well in book number 1, but it's not to book number 2 that he becomes sheriff. Now, her Hidden Grave, that's the second book in the series. And like I said, I'm just going to go through all 6 of these and then I'll back up and do the other ones. This is where Delaney has moved back to, is the small town of Kearney, Wyoming, okay? And is having another spate of murders. Unfortunately, all of the victims are teens, and now Delaney and Sheriff Leo Palmer, because he's sheriff at this point, they're desperate to stop the killer. Meanwhile, as each book in this series is closely linked to the previous book in the series, there is a storyline or an arc that continues and it grows throughout the whole series. So I highly recommend, if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, for you to go to Kindle Unlimited and to read these books in order, because there's a storyline that goes and it grows and it grows. And I really, really was drawn into that. The next book in that series is Her Last Cry. And in this book, I wrote, when much loved Annabeth Dillon is reported missing during a snowstorm in Kearney, Wyoming, Delaney's called into the case. Now, when Delaney finds Annabeth's body, she's devastated, but then she feels that there's something going on more than just a missing young woman, and she almost has a chance to catch the killer. And the question is it the killer? And then the next one is Her Forgotten Shadow. Now here is another teenage girl who is missing. Her name is Marilyn Little Wolf. I'm sorry, let me say that again. I didn't have a space in my typing. Her name is Marilyn Little Wolf, and now Delaney is looking for this girl. And when the girl does appear, there's something about her that makes Delaney think that something much bigger is going on. And what I like about this book is very early in the series, book 1, there was somebody named Skeeter Rollins, okay? And Delaney is a cop, so she's working all hours. So Skeeter became her kind of like, I'm going to say Manny, although they never said the word nanny, and they certainly never said the word Manny, but I'm going to use that term. And the reason I bring up Skeeter Rollins is something happens in this book concerning Skeeter in book 4. Again, please read the series in order. Then there was Her Burning Lies. And this is when scorched remains were found at a farmhouse, okay? But it's more than just a fire, arson, or the dead body. And again, Sheriff Leo Palmer and Deputy Detective Delaney Pace, they're investigating. Now, there are, I'm just going to say, 2 major storylines that carry throughout the series. And you'll see why I just said that just now, because I'm moving on to book number 6, Her Cold Heart. Okay, now, Delaney and Leo Palmer are officially dating. That's one of the story arcs that has been building through the first 5 books in the series, and now this is book number 6. Well, they go on a little ski trip, just the 4 of them. And when I say the 4 of them, is Delaney had become the guardian. Now she is the adoptive mother of her niece, but she's also the I can't say it, adoptive mother of another young woman. So she is mom to 2 girls. So they go skiing. And Delaney's freaking out because she's never been on a pair of skis before. And while they're in line for the ski lift, a young woman behind her says something, and they have a very brief conversation, but like you do when you see somebody in an elevator or coming out of a building, you say hello. Well, that's what Delaney did. Well, just as her and Leo get on the ski lift, a shot rings out. And it was a perfect shot to end the life of that very same young woman that Delaney was speaking to briefly before she got on the ski lift. So they take off on snowmobiles, okay? Not skis, because remember, Delaney doesn't know how to ski. They take off on separate snowmobiles, and they're racing and racing and racing to catch who they think is the shooter, who they are very sure is the shooter. Well, they become separated. So the story goes into a different direction. The direction of the story goes into what happened when they got separated in the snow, in the blinding snow, chasing the apparent killer. It's a very, very high octane book, very, very good 5-star book. By the way, let's go back. The Killer She Knew, I did 4 stars. The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, also 4 stars. Irish Parade Murder and the first book in Delaney Pace series were both 4 stars. And then I went 5 stars with the remaining books in that series. So that hopefully will get you interested in reading that series. I think it's absolutely fabulous. Like I said, the publisher is Bookouture, and I can't wait till book number 7 comes out. So now I'm going to back up because I want to tell you the other books I read while I was reading that series. And the next one is You Belong Here by Megan Miranda. Now in this book, Beckett Bowery is doing good. She's got a job as a ghostwriter. Her life is going well. She got away from her town, which is Wyatt Valley. But she finds out that not only did her daughter, who's now out of high school, apply to go to Wyatt College there in Wyatt Valley, she got a full scholarship. So that's her intent. She's moving back to Wyoming. Well, the thing is it Wyoming? I don't know. I want to say Wyatt. Well, we'll just say the town, Wyatt Valley. Becca thought she got away from Wyatt Valley for good. And then, now that her daughter's now ensconced in college, she's got a roommate, she's staying, on campus. Beckett has to take the opportunity to go visit her daughter. So she goes to visit her daughter, and her daughter's nowhere to be found. That's mystery. But then the book is a then and now. Because it's then and because it's now, we have the angst that comes with her finding her daughter, but we also find out why she was so glad to get away from Wyatt Valley in the first place. Then I read a historical romance. I don't read many historical romances. I don't read a lot of romance anymore. I'm more into mystery thrillers. But this one was To Win Her Hand by Melissa Addey. And it involved a couple, Lady Celia and Alexander, who is Lord Comerford. They were betrothed to each other since birth. Well, Alexander has been away at war. He comes home, and now it's time to take... Why am I drawing a blank on her name? Now it's time to take Celia as his bride. Caveat. What is the caveat? Celia and Alexander are like oil and water. Celia wants love. Celia wants a match. She wants a love match. So there's some angst there with the fact that Alexander has every right to claim her to be his future wife. But then something happens, and it's kind of weather related, where they end up spending a lot of time together. And it is during this time that, it's a love story. You can go from there. Then I read The Christmas Party by Kathryn Croft. And, oh, by the way, I don't think I mentioned, but to win her hand, I gave 4 stars. Then The Christmas Party, which was also 4 stars. There was a secret that came to life. 12 years ago, 6 teens had an unsupervised Christmas party. There was a lot of drinking involved, and something happened during that party. Well, now, fast forward 12 years later, and they're all back at the same location. I believe it's a cottage, and to have another Christmas party. But the organizer of the Christmas party wants much more than that because of whatever happened 12 years previously, and I'll leave that up to you when you read the book. So the next book we have is The Baby on My Doorstep by Miranda Smith. I rated this one 4 stars. Now, our protagonist, her name is Emily. She's facing some crises in her life. Her marriage is just about over. Her sister has disappeared completely, and they were like this. They were closer than close, but her sister just disappeared into thin air. And as far as Emily is concerned, she's going to find out what happened to her sister. But there's 2 things here. One is she is determined to prove that a certain individual is responsible for the disappearance, if not murder, of her sister. Number 2, a baby appears on her doorstep. And then there's a familiar match. So CPS or the Children's Services says, hey, this is your blood. You take care of it. Well, how is that baby related to her? Okay, so I'm going to try to leave you guessing on that one. Then we had The Son-in-Law by Ellie Monago. And here, when Diana meets her daughter Lisa's new fiance, Gavin, her heart just drops. It hits her stomach. What is it about Gavin that shocks Diana so much? Who is Gavin anyway? Well, when her daughter Lisa was in high school, and I think they call it second form there. They don't call it high school there. But when her daughter was in the upper grade, Gavin was her teacher. And there's a secret. She has a secret. Diana has a secret. But guess who knows that secret? Gavin knows that secret. So, I love this book because any book that has dual timelines is very intriguing to me. So we have to go back to see why and how Diana and Gavin met back when her daughter was in high school. And then we have to go with the fact that she is determined, and she believes without a shadow of a doubt that Gavin is not there because he loves her daughter and wants to marry her daughter. She knows something is up. Really, really good book. And you know what? I gave it 4 stars, but I might go up. I don't think I'm done with that review either. Who knows? Then another baby story. This one is My Daughter's Baby by Kate Hewitt. A very heartbreaking story because our protagonist, Diana, she had an estranged relationship, her and her husband, with their daughter. And what happened was when they met her daughter, and her daughter's name was Sophie, not when they met her daughter's Sophie's boyfriend. Right then and there, Sophie's father just completely disapproved of her boyfriend. So Sophie takes off with him, they get married, and that's that. Well, now they're called to the hospital. What? Why? What's wrong with Sophie? Well, sadly, Sophie doesn't survive a birth, the birth of Diana's grandson. So Diana and her husband, especially her husband, I believe his name is Andrew, I don't have it written down here, decide, and I'm going to say 99% Andrew, 1% Diana, that they're going to become custodial guardians of the grandson. Tom, Sophie's boyfriend, now husband, Tom wants him out of the picture. But again, remember, he's 99% for this and Diana's not. Well, they end up opening up their home to Tom and the baby. And this hopefully will give, again, Andrew more ammunition that he needs to file for custody. But there's good drama here because this book deals with the fact that when Diana had Sophie, she had postpartum depression she had a severe case of postpartum depression. And over time, she feels that she had made up for the time she lost with Sophie when she was lost within herself. But those feelings come up, those feelings of inadequacy, they come up. And as these feelings come up, she wonders how in the world is she going to be a mother again. Really, really good book. Kate Hewitt. Just a couple more. Well, a few more. The next one is The Writer's Retreat by Samantha Verant. And here we have Montgomery. She's invited to a retreat where she will work with other writers. And things are not like they seem. But even though there's a definite aspect to a crime there, the book is mainly focused on the toxic relationship between Montgomery and another character. And so while you have something going on where they're at the retreat, because I'm thinking when I'm going to read this book, I'm going to read a closed door mystery. That's what I'm thinking. But, that's not what we get. We get a dramatic story that involves the characters. And by the way, there's a murder. Let's figure out who did it. Then we have My Husband, and I think I'm going 3 stars. For some reason, I have 4 stars here, but that's a mistake. It's definitely not 4 stars. Then we have My Husband Next Door by L Slater. This is a fascinating setup. You have a married couple, Sylvie and Matt. They live in separate houses, 2 doors down from one another, but they're happily married. At the end of the day, whether it's a meal, whether it's intimacy, whether it's conversation, he goes to his house and she remains at her house and everything's going copacetic. Well, step in a new neighbor. Her name is Brenda. Okay? While you have this new neighbor, this dynamic, okay, Sylvie and Matt, they have a daughter who has a baby. Something happens in the course of her daughter having that baby. But then remember I just said Brenda, and I know I messed up a little bit here. Brenda just moved across. I think she moved directly across the street from them. She just worms her way into their lives and it all becomes twisted and she becomes part and parcel to their lives, much to Matt's dismay, especially Matt. I have one more sentence here, but I don't think I want to say it because it might be a spoiler. Then we have Witness to Murder by Debra Webb. And I do want to bring this book up on NetGalley because there are 4 books. I did read all of them. Okay, so there are 4 books in this series. This is the Colby Agency, The Next Generation. The first book was A Colby Christmas Rescue. Then there was Alibi for Murder, Memory of Murder, and Witness to Murder. I had Memory of Murder and this book here, Witness to Murder, as audiobooks. And I have not written this review yet, but in each case, you have a client and somebody from the Colby Agency steps in to help that client. Well, in this particular client, there's a teacher and someone dies and the police are looking at her as the main suspect. She hires out the agency, and then that is the way that she meets, I want to say his name, she meets Owen Walker. Her name is Leah. She meets Owen. They work together to clear her name and to find whoever is the killer. And it's kind of romantic suspense, but it's probably 95% suspense and 5% romance, but it's there. All right, let's jump back to my spreadsheet. Then we have Green Pastures by Patricia Johns. Now this book came out, I think, earlier this year, sometime around February, but I wanted to read it because there's the next book in the series that I'm hoping I'll be approved of. But this is about Tabitha Schrock. She returns home to Lancaster County. She was former Amish, but she never left the Amish in her heart. Well, now, fast forward 10 years later, she's back home, and she's divorced. She married an Englisher, not an Amish man, so that prevents her from Amish law ever marrying again. But that's not her intent anyway. What her intent is to help her two sisters, Amanda and Rose. Rose is married, but the waters are a little shaky. And Amanda is unmarried, and she needs a husband. And she's getting to the point where spinsterhood is right there at her door. And the Amish believe in marriage and procreation and family. So our character does her best, Tabitha does her best to help both Rose with her marital difficulties, as well as helping Amanda find a husband. The last book that we'll mention in this video is Julia's Song is Undateable by Susan Lee. Now, any type of multicultural book that I can read, I really look forward to. And that's the case with this book. It's all based on Korean culture and expectations. Our protagonist, Julia Song, she's doing great in life. She's CEO of her own cosmetics company. She's got a staff. She's fine. But she's also 30 years old and unmarried. And then her grandmother comes to her with her dying wish. I wish I could see you married before I die. Well, she hasn't had any success in dating. Step in Tae Kim, T-A-E, Kim. And he says from now on, he's called Tae. Tae is 5 years her junior. In fact, he used to babysit Tae when he was a youngster. And now, his family and her family have decided that Tae would make the perfect dating coach for Julia Song. They're going to set up dates, and Tae is going to coach her on how to act on these dates and hopefully find a husband. Really, really cute book. I really enjoyed it. I end up giving it 5 stars, and I don't know if it's because I'm a good audience for multicultural. I don't know if that's why, but I gave it 5 stars. So those are the first 20 books. That is my wrap up. I've been my notes are right here. So that's what when I look down, these are notes that I made so that I could try to make a decent video. But thank you for watching, and I probably will see you with my monthly wrap up in a few weeks. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.